Boy, it's hot. Woo! Oh, it's hot by us. I don't know about you. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. All right, look, it's always like, because it's true. It's just true. And like, I always feel that somebody's got to be a counterweight to the media who just constantly reports things from one side and always misses the big story. But as we're doing these models, we do these basically after every election where we'll go in and we'll model out these different states and see where we are. It's part of a process that we have with our own, whether we show you guys public polling or, it's work we're doing privately for clients. We really have to have a firm grip on the direction and the direction the country is going or feels like it's going, the changes that it's undergoing. All right. And, a lot of it looks very bad for Democrats, okay? And the media is always rosy for Democrats, and it's like always Democrats are going to win every election, and every forecaster that's on every payroll, which is all Democratic, always says they're going to win every election, right? And so most of our show has always been, of course, because it's been more untrue than it has been true. And so that gets you labeled as like this right-wing pundit or pollster simply for telling people the honest, accurate take. So I'm listening to, what we're planning out here, and I'm looking at the modeling that we're going to show you over the next couple of weeks, and I'm trying to find the bigger picture. Because you could do 100 shows about this is bad news for Democrats over here, and here's why. This is not good news for Democrats over here, and here's why. And we've been talking a lot about economic stuff that we haven't been able to focus on during the Trump era because he fills the schedule with no shortage of political content. But a lot of that, of course, is intertwined. Before I get into and I got two clips I want to show. Before I get into it, because they really kick off, there's one clip each for one thing that we're going to talk about. One of which, by the way, we told you about. We told you. Well, we told you about both, but I mean, we told you about one a while ago. And this guy always goes on with his little Leave It to Beaver accent and goes on CNN and talks about something that we've been telling you about for months. And in this case, actually, it was a lot longer than months. This poll that we conducted to show you what we're going to show you that now they're catching on was done a year ago. A year ago. For a private client who releases public work and who thought that this would have a tremendous impact on the election and that it was not being a reported story. And I remember going into the project and being like, I think maybe you might be overhyping this. It was not overhyped. I always listen to what people tell me instead of trying to tell the sample or the electorate what to think by weighting them ridiculously. I always just keep my ears open. And this was way ahead of its time. Way. And at the time, we actually didn't focus that much on it. There were other things to talk about, but it was there all along. All right. And we'll get back to that. We'll come back to that. But this other one is a product of what I was just telling you, how the media, this other story that I think is, there's one that's reported, as the banner says. There's one that's reported, and then there's one that's underreported. And that's a product, that's a result of what I was telling you about the media and how they just naturally report stuff. We call them the Demediocratic Party. It is an incestuous relationship between corporate media and the Democratic Party. It is not honest. It's not impartial. It is totally corrupt. And it is skewed to deliver the news in a way that benefits the Democrats, makes it more likely for them to win elections, makes the picture appear rosier than it is for them. This is what they do. That is what they are. So you don't need a podcast to do that for you. So this is what I would tell corporate media about all of their criticisms of independent pollsters they call right-wing pollsters. Okay. Right wing meaning we're what? We're right when you're wrong? Because I guess I am right leaning since I'm right more than I'm wrong. Maybe I should just embrace that term. But you wouldn't need this podcast or any other alternative media podcast to do what media does. The country needs somebody who's going to do what they're really supposed to do. And that their pollsters, in my case, that those media companies hire, their job. For the many years, the country did not have that until the rise of independent media. But still, nevertheless, where am I going with all this? Nevertheless, I still feel like I am trying to find something that is a good piece of information for Democrats to appear impartial, right? Because we want to be. But the truth is, you just need the whole story. What is the word impartial or not? What is that really the relevant term here? You're supposed to find the whole story and deliver the whole story. And the whole story, in short, is this: things do not look very good in the long term for Democrats. They have a bright spot, and that bright spot is Republicans are stupid. Republican Party is stupid. Their consultants, like Sam Spencer out there in western part of the state, western part of the nation, that picks all of these losers for the NRSC and the NRCC, they're not smart. They think they are, but they're not. And they lose elections that they should have won or could have won. And if they had their way, despite what their fake candidates say and everything, if they had their way, they would go right back to the pre-Trump era where things were looking great for Democrats until Donald Trump came along. And honestly, I'd throw a little warning in there for the president that your team of endorsement team is ass. They suck. And why should that matter to you? It should matter to you because of your legacy. The party was destroyed until you came along. It's been destroyed, honestly, since the last guy like you came along. And his name was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's own vice president led to the demise, who he endorsed, by the way, led to not only the demise of the Republican Party as a national political force until Donald Trump resurrected it, like Jesus resurrected Lazarus. Republicans, wake up. Right? But there's just like so many parallels here. It also killed, in many ways, what the special thing that we had as a country, because it allowed for such a one-party dominant period that they ran roughshod, and it caused what we have now. It caused a polarization that has paralyzed us since the Obama era. Because, of course, that we would not have George W. Bush Jr. All right, George W. Bush. We would not have George W. Bush if we didn't have Herbert Walker Bush. I mean, it's just a reality. The guy couldn't manage the Rangers by himself. He couldn't wipe his ass himself. He couldn't do anything himself without his daddy. So, he would never have become president without his daddy. Let's get real. He wasn't even going to run for governor. All right. And daddy wanted Jeb to run, actually. Whoops. Georgie threw a wrench in the family plans and left a Republican Party that was totally destroyed. That's the only bright spot there is for Democrats. And part of it, you could say it's two things, but it's not. It's one thing wrapped up into one. The realignment, which is making these models look so bad for Democrats, has afforded them one thing, which allows what I just said, that one thing I just said, to really be a problem for Republicans. And that is a very reliable, steadfast base. The problem Democrats have with it is that it is not filled with growing populations. So all of these populations that Democrats have now as a result of the realignment are all people who are falling off the map. They did not get this dominance with Hispanics the way that Rui and John Judas thought they were going to get. That didn't happen. They did for a period under Obama. And now Trump has put Republicans on a trajectory to win a majority of the Hispanic vote. Now, can they do it? We'll see. They're stupid, like I said. But they did put them on that trajectory. They are growing. Working class Hispanics are growing as a share of the overall electorate and the United States population. White, overly educated, middle aged liberal women are not. The period of send all of your children to college because and bury them with student debt because is not, it's over. It's over. And in order for Democrats, they need to keep cranking them out. And even if they did, they themselves are still falling as a share of the overall population and a share of the overall electorate. Because, of course, as one group grows faster than you, your slice of the pie shrinks. And that has been going on with whites, with the exception of the period with Trump. So with the realignment, they get a very reliable base. Oh, and the other side of that base is dying. They'll be dead soon. MAGA is younger. MAGA is growing. This is why I kind of feel like, I don't kind of. You expect Democrats to resist because that's what, I mean, unless it's just good for the country. We used to once upon a time come together, but things didn't matter who you were, Republican or Democrat. If it was good for the country, we did it. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan did it together. Republicans and Democrats in Florida after the hanging Chad fiasco did it together. We don't do that anymore, and that's very sad because Democrats are fanatics. That's just true. Democrats are fanatics and Republicans are crooks. I wonder sometimes how much of it really is polarization and how much of it is just a byproduct of that reality. Democrats are fanatics and they want what they want when they want it, and that's it. They do not compromise, even though they know they're in the minority, the gross minority, when it comes to a lot of this. One thing I'm going to show you in a second. But then you have the Republicans on the other side who really aren't for what they say they're for. They're totally full of crap. The great Rush Limbaugh was 100% right about the primary reason that Republicans don't like Donald Trump. The Paul Ryans and the Mike Pences and the rest of them. It's because they're full of shit. And somebody like Donald Trump comes along and says, well, wait a minute. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do AMWAR? Why don't you fight for corporate tax rates to be in a bracket where we can safely believe that they're going to result in rising wages? Why didn't you shut the border? You keep saying you believe these things, but you get elected and you don't do it. You didn't repeal Obamacare. This is the Republican Party in the modern era. And part of it is because they're cowards and they're afraid of the media. But the bigger part of it is they're simply corrupt. They don't believe what they tell you they believe when they run. So when you take all of that into consideration, that is really the one silver lining for the Democratic Party. The rest is very bad news. Pennsylvania is basically even now. When Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton, Democrats had nearly an 8-point registration edge in the state of Pennsylvania. They had a multi-point edge in the state of Florida. That is now a massive deficit. In the state of Nevada, it was D+5 when Hillary Clinton narrowly lost that state to Donald Trump. It is now an even state. When Joe Biden finally won Arizona for a Democratic candidate, even though I think we all know what happened in 2020, when he finally won it by like 12,000 votes, Democrats actually did cut into Republicans' registration. They did. Maricopa was even. The state was barely R plus 3 to 4. It's not anymore. Maricopa is now back to being pretty solidly Republican by about 4 points, even if you allocate those others who don't, align with any even thirds. And the state alone is going to end up around R plus 9. Now, that only matters, that only is going to happen if Republicans keep the Trump coalition. So again, there is one bright side to Democrats. That being said, we have a lot of, I wanted to throw consumer sentiment in there. Once again, Our registered voter economic confidence index was a leading indicator on sentiment. And while that's why we do it the way we do it, that's why we break those sub indicators down the way we do, and then break the index into present and present situation and expectations, because it allows us to really see what people are worried about, what part of the economy they may have concerns about, or vice versa, what part of the economy they may have optimism over. And especially in the current condition that was relevant to what was going on in our last survey, it was very obvious. People were starting to realize that the sky wasn't falling from Trump's tariffs. And they always thought in the 6-month outlook that things were they were looking up. That regardless of whether it would be turmoil for a while or volatile for a while, this time is different with the Trump administration. And I think Democrats made a mistake here. This time, when the boat rocks, they're not getting seasick that easily. And I know it's early in the administration. We're only in the month of May, headed into June right now. But by this time in 2017, there were already people completely falling for the rock the boat tactic. And what is that? For those of you who don't know, it's based on my theory from 2020 about the seasick voter. They may not even personally like Donald Trump, but they do think he's competent. The media kind of saw this. The Democratic Party saw this, and they thought, okay, people think they're ready for change. Change is rough. Let's show them rough. The seas are not smooth. And every day they rocked the boat. They were the ones whipping up the storms, not Trump. I mean, did he react to it right? No. That's why it was the theory of the seasick voter. But still, he wasn't responsible for those whitecaps, And they were right. But this time, it doesn't look like they were right. This time, it looked like, you know what? Yes, I am worried about tariffs. I don't know what the hell he's doing. I mean, we elected him to get, inflation under control, and I think he could make this worse for me, maybe. But 6 months from now, I'm not worried because I know Donald Trump can do this job. That's a massive difference. And that is what we're hearing like crazy. So we knew the confidence was going to bounce back, as it did. We can look at that if we have time. We probably don't. But there's a lot of big things going on. And some of them are being reported modestly, but not enough. It is a massive. I'll blow up my own horn here in the second segment. We'll start with this one, which isn't about me, but I did also find this, and I told you this was happening. Just saying. There is a massive sea change in sentiment that we have not seen, maybe even some of you in your lifetime. And if it was a Democratic administration, we would be hearing this 24/7. This is probably the biggest polling story in the country. It's huge, related to polling and public opinion. It's massive. And you hear a peep here, a peep there. So while it's being reported, it is grossly being underreported, especially considering how long some of us have been screaming about it. Ever since the honeymoon phase in Donald Trump's second term in January, I remember it was January 23rd. We went over this in detail and said this is big. And people have kind of like paid some tribute to it. I think I've been asked by media all of twice. I think John Solomon asked me about it. Amanda on his show asked me about it. And I mean, in all seriousness, I don't remember that many people bringing it up. It is something that I chose to bring up, not that they saw it and said, hey, Rich, is that a big deal? That's like a big deal, right? And it was a massive deal. Play the clip first, and we'll read an article.
Ed Rasmussen are the best at polling MAGA and polling around President Trump. You've got some, quite frankly, pretty amazing numbers out, particularly things I track, like right track, wrong track, what the feeling of the country is. Walk me through the reality of kind of these great numbers for President Trump.
Yeah, the way I look at it is we poll daily presidential approval rating, and maybe that's a report card for the presidency, the administration. But in my opinion, right direction, wrong track is more of a report card for basically the democracy. It's
Me
an
too.
important number and something that a
Yes.
pollster should be laser focused on, because it
Yes.
means if the number goes up, that Americans are actually getting what they voted for.
Yep.
And surprise, over the last 2 decades of polling for Rasmussen's history, voters have not been getting what they've been voting for. And the number has been horrifyingly low for almost all of Obama's term. Right direction was essentially 30%.
Yep.
Joe Biden was kicking around in the high 20s and high 30s.
Yep.
All of a sudden, Trump 2.0 comes in, and we're
Yep.
setting records right and left. And I saw something yesterday that I never thought I'd see in my polling career, is a 50% right direction print, which means, in layman's speak, that a majority of U.S. likely voters, for the very first time in Rasmussen polling history, think the country is headed in the right direction. Only 45% wrong track, net +5. We've had quite a few prints now with a positive net right direction number, and 100% of them have been in Trump 47.
100% of them have been in Trump 47. I told you when we did that first poll, the first public polling project after his inauguration, or during and then after, this has never been the case. Like, we had to go back and look at our trend. This has never evened up like this, ever. I thought it did briefly during Trump 1.0, but it only got close. And then Mark was on the show, and we'd actually discussed that you can use those graphs and then add what are essentially breakpoints or line plots that you can plot it with a horizontal, a vertical line plot. You can show that the media would then come in and like sour the whole thing with something. Russia collusion, some hoax, some scam, some con, as if they didn't want the country to be happy or doing well or feeling like they're headed in the right direction, because they don't. This time around, it is hitting those, because I told you the seasick voters aren't that sick anymore. They're wise to it. They're smart to it. They know now. That's something Trump didn't have in his first term. It also, what he said about it, this is why it's a big polling story. Because of what it means for our society and our functional, and whether or not it is, our system of government and whether it can function properly. You cannot just have run a country where the people consistently believe for 20 years, the country's going off the cliff. No self-governing society will tolerate that forever. So you'll either get pushed back and some kind of political upheaval that results in course correction, or a little thing called, R.J. Rummel called, democide, which is death by government. People don't tolerate an inhumane human condition forever. It is quite literally the biggest story right now in public polling. And everybody sees it. Or at least everybody that has polled this era correctly. The big names have not. Even some of them have had an upswing. Without a doubt, though, we're no longer in the 20s of the Biden years. We're no longer in the 30s of the Obama years. And Trump was struggling with right direction, wrong track too in his first term, because of all the rocking of the boat and all the storms at sea made by and brought to you by the Democratic Party. Massive story, guys. Massive story. All right. Let's take a real quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at the other one. And then, oh wait, man, this commercial break is gonna have to hang on a second because I forgot to get through this. Let's read Nolte's take on it. Okay. Right track number hits 50% for first time in poll history. For the first time in its 29-year polling history, guys, I mean, legit, do I need to even for the first time in its 29-year polling history, Rasmussen shows that 50% of the country believes America is on the right track, compared to 45% who say we are on the wrong track. Holy crap, it happened, Rasmussen Mark Mitchell announced on X, adding, for the first time in our polling history, a majority says the country is on the right track. He added, don't F it up, Republicans. Notice that Mark reacts the same way that I react. So I see positive news for Republicans, and my first reaction is don't F it up. And apparently the same is true of Mark, and of course it's true of many others. Rasmussen first began tracking the right track, wrong track number almost 20 years ago in 2006. Rasmussen reported the specific number on X, as you can see. This is not a one-night aberration. Rather, it's a tracking poll that averages the last 5 days. Update, right direction just in, rolling average of last night and prior 4 nights, uncharted territory. And this is positive news for the country. There's a good morning. U.S. voters are increasingly optimistic. This is good news for the country. It's almost unfathomable how we've gotten into an era. I think back when I was young, I think Tip O'Neill would have come out and said, this is good. We've been working with the president, and voters can see it. We're both Republicans and Democrats are trying to do what's right for the American people, and we think they're starting to notice. We'll keep it up. I really do feel Tip O'Neill would have said that. Now, I'm not saying the guy was the perfect angel, the perfect Democrat, but he wasn't a fanatic. He wasn't a fanatic. And that's what it takes to try to sabotage your own country's optimism. Looking back in the first Trump era, I wonder a lot, and Mark and I had this conversation on air, you might remember. I wonder a lot how much the American economy and American ingenuity, how much they would have achieved and created, innovated in an unchained Trump optimism epoch, right? Because that was, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. This is the real skill that a president like a Donald Trump or even a Bill Clinton and certainly a Ronald Reagan, Trump and Reagan are very much alike. They are American cheerleaders. And that's their gift, that they know that they don't have to throw all these demands on the American public. They want to be naturally optimistic people and naturally productive people. It's who we are. It's part of our American identity. By the way, Nations and Identities Book Club, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's what we're reading. Vincent Pecora, don't be late. Show up, show up, show up. Because, honestly, you'd learn a lot. Just throwing this out there. What kind of a fanatic sabotages that, ladies and gentlemen? It takes a lot. The same kind, like a Mitch McConnell, he wasn't a fanatic for ideology, but he was a fanatic for power. The same kind of motivation that drives people to do this to Trump drove Mitch McConnell to say, my number one job is to make Obama a first-term president, right after the first black president was elected. Right, you don't agree with the guy ideologically, but you try to give him a chance, right? Not always, but in a historical moment like that, you want to try to give him a chance. Wouldn't it be good for the country if he succeeded? They've forgotten that the party is a vehicle created to serve the public and to represent the values of a certain constituency in that public. But ultimately, your main loyalty should be toward those people, and yet you betray them constantly, over and over again, because you're a fanatic. And again, he was a fanatic for power. Mitch McConnell once told a donor's friend of mine, his father was a big slinger, that he really didn't care whether Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in 2020. That in fact, he thinks for him and what he can do for his friends in the U.S. Senate, a Joe Biden presidency would be more conducive to him being able to make, an environment where he could do what is good for Mitch McConnell and good for the people who give to Mitch McConnell. He once told him that in his home, straight up. And of course, when Donald Trump, air quote, lost that election, he was one of the first ones to skate. This comes as no surprise. If you look at our country's history going back to 06, there was no reason for optimism. In 06, we were mired in Iraq, and then there was Katrina. Then in 08, Barry Obama and his languishing economy and racial division entered the White House. Then in 16, Trump entered office under a media-manufactured cloud of Russia collusion, and then left office in a country dealing with race riots and COVID fascism. Don't get me started on the dreadful Biden years that followed. Millions of illegals destroying our cities, men cheating in women's sports, the disgusting attempt to normalize sexual fetishes, the Afghanistan withdrawal, ... Trump's 24 return has changed everything. He won big time. He is firmly in control and fearlessly executing the agenda he was elected to implement. He is rosy about America's future. That's the cheerleading aspect. He sees it. He's recognizing. He's trying to articulate it. He loves his country and he isn't afraid to show it. He's deporting illegals, removing perverts from the military, and attacking institutional anti-Semitism in places like Harvard. In Trump, people see leadership. People see optimism. Above all, people are no longer fooled by the fake media. They see a man in charge working hard to make America great again. That gives voters confidence in the future, especially when they already see the results in trade deals and lower energy prices. And Rasmussen is not the only pollster who reflects this optimism. In the Real Clear Politics average of right track, wrong track polling, in which we are there, they are dramatically moving in the right direction. Back in November of 04, 63% said America was on the wrong track, while only 26% said we were on the right track. That's a 37-point negative difference. That spread's negative 37, folks. Today, there is a 7-point negative difference, 44 to 51. And why is that? Well, I would argue because of all those not even left-leaning, but leftist hack polls that are still in that average. All right. Let's take a break now. We have to talk about our friends, our buddies over at 1775. Feel free to choose whichever you want. But I got to go through the ringer here. 1775 is giving away starter kits loaded with premium coffee and gear. While coffee prices have jumped, 1775 is out here launching freebies like, again, somebody left that team unsupervised. But it is only available while quantities last. This week is 3 bags of coffee, 2 16-ounce of your choice, dark or medium, plus the longevity blend. A little bit of a change this week, but infused with anti-aging CA-AKG, clinically proven to reduce biological age. I would get this one, by the way, if I... I know, this is how it works out. I got the wrong... It's all right. I got the... Last week, I'm like, oh, I want this. I want that. Now this one, honestly, when you can choose either the dark or medium with the longevity, if you had, asked me which one I would have preferred, this one would have been... Look, bottom line, translation, CA-AKG turns out to be the fountain of youth. It comes in a 16-ounce, and it doesn't taste like kale. You cover 2 bags, 1775 covers the rest. That's a full 16-ounce bag of coffee plus premium gear, which is matte black tumbler, the frother, the gold scoop, or reusable K-cup filter. By the way, I just used the frother to mixed my protein because it is more powerful than the cheapo one, I guess I got on Amazon. Whole bean, ground, or pods, it's all your call. Start your day with coffee that backs your values, clears your head, fires you up, and makes you feel like yourself again. Go to 1775coffee.com/TPP. The link is in the description, as always, and grab your free starter kit before someone realizes this is a bad decision. 1775coffee.com/TPP. Go and get it, folks. I have no bones about saying this. There are a lot of good coffees out there. I am very partial to 1775. Very partial. They even have, because I've been dragging my lazy butt in the gym again, along with my son, which is great. I'm having a blast with him. They actually have a creamer that's a whey protein, like a lean whey protein creamer. So guys, if you're out there like me, where you're trying to get back in a routine and you want a cup of coffee, of which I can really only have one of a day, but you don't want to add all that crap. Those, and I don't mean crap, they're good products, they're just not good for you. Like the International Delight creamers and all that other stuff. If you like vanilla, especially, then the whey protein creamer is like, why not? If you're gonna have that cup of coffee, why not have it with protein, lean protein? So they even have that. It's cool. All right, 240. Time to get back on the ticker here. I don't know why. Where's that poll? There you are. Okay, gotta get that handy here. I mean, this is just something that we were all over, and kind of, for me, we stumbled on it. Like it was a project done for somebody, and it was meant to be private, but also because when we get to it, you'll see. It's not like it wasn't obvious, but it wasn't like we weren't talking about this potential alliance of ideas that could result in an expanded MAGA coalition, which would not only beat Harris, which we expected it to do, but I mean, like, drum her. It did. All right, let's play this clip. There's been a war on alternative currencies and cash for years. The government doesn't like cash for the same reason they don't like crypto. They don't like crypto for the same reason they don't like cash. It's unregulated. They're not in control and can't see everything and monitor everything. There is conversation about currencies as well, precious metals, same thing. I eventually think that they will make it so you cannot buy physical gold and silver anymore. I think that's going to happen at some point, but it hasn't gotten here yet. In any event, maybe I should save this until after, but when things like crypto came on the scene, it was branded badly, and I know this from other work we've done. It was branded badly and almost synonymous with like scam. There were so many companies out there running game on people that it wasn't trustworthy at all. And part of it is that people didn't understand it well, right? So there was not a very good reaction to it. And you had like a couple of crypto gurus who made a lot of money in it, and some people who were scammed out of a lot of money. There's, by the way, anybody, I mean, I don't know if you're a Netflix watcher, but there was a documentary on Netflix about one of these very big scams. We're going to make the very first crypto debit card. You guys remember this? And it didn't work at all. Not even close. And they knew it, and they knew they were defrauding people, and they did. So it had a bad rep, even though there was a legitimate purpose for it. Not purpose, but a legitimate role for it. It took a very long time for that to change. And I'm pretty sure I know that a big part of this was Donald Trump's campaign and the opening the door in his coalition to other more kind of libertarian-minded people. At least on that end, I think it was productive. On some of the foreign policy stuff, I don't. I think they're just crazy. And immigration, it's insane. Just because being a libertarian should not mean you don't follow your laws or protect your borders. It's a constitutional function of government. Like, what the hell are you? whatever. I mean, I'm rambling into my own opinions here. But financial was huge because you're taking in all of these new people, young people, and they don't really trust that existing system in order that the baby boomers have like destroyed. And they're like a house, it's all a house of cards. So they want something else, and they want innovative ideas, and they don't have the security and the promise of a future that prior generations had before them. So they were very much open to these other ideas and other alternative forms of currency. I'm going to get into the little remember this, I told you so thing, but let's play this clip first from Endon explaining this, how big of a shift it is, and then we'll show you what I'm talking about.
This is one of the trend lines in American politics and just American society overall that makes you go, wow, crypto has become part of the mainstream. What are we talking about here? The belief that crypto should be legal. Back in 2014, it was just 38% of Americans. Look at this shift. Hello. It is now 55% of Americans who believe that crypto should be legal, compared to just 38% who believe it should, in fact, be illegal, at least most of the time. So this is a big part that's playing in a Donald Trump's play here, is that the American public has shifted tremendously on it, going from just 38% who believe it should be legal to now 55% who believe it should be legal in 2025.
All right, crypto people, how have their politics changed?
Yeah, how have crypto people? Part of this is Trump loves people who are loyal to him, right? This is something we've seen time and time again.
Harry.
Trump's margin among crypto voters compared to overall. In 2020, he did 4 points worse among crypto voters than he did overall. He lost them. But take a look at 2024. Whoa, that's a huge shift. He did 19 points better among crypto voters than he did overall. Won them rather easily. So part of Donald Trump getting into bed with crypto owners is that they like Donald Trump, and therefore Donald Trump loves crypto owners.
It's possible that he saw fertile ground there, which is, he went in, he asked for their vote, he told them what they wanted to hear.
I'm going to show you an integral part of that whole process. It's not possible. It happened. And I'm going to show you how it happened in a second.
Here, how's he doing in crypto beyond politics?
Yeah, okay. So, we spoke about the fact that the American public believes that crypto should be legal. We've spoken about the fact that crypto voters have been loyal, have shifted over to Donald Trump. But it's also that Donald Trump's family is making a ton of money on crypto. Trump family paper gains from crypto. Get this, nearing $1 billion. We're talking from mining. We're talking from their own coins. The bottom line is the Trump family saw an opportunity to go into crypto to make a lot of money from crypto, and that is, in fact, exactly what they have done. And Donald Trump is one of the people who has been responsible for bringing crypto into the mainstream, because it's been good for him politically, but it has also been quite good for him and his family financially.
Yeah, sometimes it is hard to find that line between those two either.
Yes.
All right.
Donald Trump is towing that line.
Like, I'm just not amused by these freaking people anymore. I'm just not, they're not funny. You're so jealous. It's obvious. It's like falling. The green is like sliding off your face, bro. Be real. It's like, Anywho, you may remember back in May of 2024, you had some people out there like Barnes, for one, and there were others who were trying to explain to Donald Trump and others that it would be good to bring in the Robert Kennedy Vivek overlap, and that the votes they have either received or could have received really didn't represent the totality of the people that potentially you could add to your coalition if you do. And why is this important? There was a huge overlap when we talked about low propensity voters, people who didn't vote, or people who didn't vote often, who saw something in like a Kennedy candidacy. It was like, well, okay, this is different. And the ideas that Vivek, articulated during his campaign and others, right? This issue was one of the biggest issues among those people when you ask them what could motivate you to vote. All right. And it was smart of Donald Trump to see that opening and go for it. You may remember a poll we did back a year ago called the 4 Freedoms poll. I mean, literally, this was done a year ago. And one of the questions on it, 2 of them had to deal with crypto and alternative currencies in general, but it was the 4 freedoms because we're talking about financial, we're talking about medical, right? Freedom of speech, right? So, and legal freedoms, but because of lawfare at the time. We asked about a bunch of other stuff, medical being like food freedom too, medicine freedoms, not the way that Democrats and others portray what is a medical freedom. It is your right to put in your body what you want to put into your body, right? You don't need a government to tell you what food you can and cannot buy and what food, where you can't buy it or who you can't buy it from. Or what currency you could use to get it or to build wealth, etc. So we asked a couple of questions about all of these, and they were tied in with, who are you considering voting for? We had vote history, all of that, right? And this was a big one, all right? So if we look, you can see the more or less likely, okay? I have never voted before. Look at the spread in those who said that they would be more likely to vote for a candidate. And please, this is how we worded it. Let me just read it exactly how it's worded. Please tell us whether you would be more or less likely to support a candidate who held each of the following positions, or if it would have no impact. And this is, of course, the relevant one right here. Supports a right to buy and own alternative currencies, i.e. Bitcoin and crypto. 36% overall in the entire poll said they would be more likely to support a candidate who did support, who supported a right to buy these alternative currencies, right? To buy and own. Only 21% said they would be less likely. And about 43% said that really had no impact. But that was driven, that lower to, still over a third, but lower than 4 in 10 was driven by voters, like, people who vote a lot. However, among those who have never voted, I have never voted, that number was 20 points. So it's simple to look at a poll and see, all right, who's voting for Robert Kennedy? Who's voting for somebody else? Who's tired of the two-party system, right? And how big of a vote share is that? Can it impact the election? Of course we want to know that. But what was explained behind the scenes is that a couple things are going on here. You are doing better than any Republican in our history since we've been breathing. With voters who don't vote. With voters who vote infrequently. Typically, it is the other way around. Democrats win the unlikely vote because of the marginalized groups that don't vote, because of younger people who don't vote, because of course, I said marginalized, but I mean that both economically and racially, right? That's who it is. That's who we're talking about. And yet these people were fairly big on crypto, certainly more so than the overall population. And crypto happened to be, again, one of the biggest issues, highest scoring issues when we would ask a series of questions, which would motivate, what issue could someone champion, make their campaign about, make a movement about, right? Usher in a new age with something. What issue would motivate you that you care so much about, would motivate you enough to vote since you don't vote? And it was very clear crypto was one of those big ones. All right. And you can see it here. Also, it is interesting, by the way, that even though it's only 36% have said more likely, we're still talking about, 15% more than those who said less likely. Huge no impact. But when you're talking about people who care about this issue, it obviously was a net positive for Trump. Had he reached out, had he brought RFK into the fold, had he, given people like Vivek and some of these other voices a bigger voice, a bigger platform, and they ran all over the country saying, guess what? We're going to not just talk about the usual nonsense this time. We are going to we're going to end the war on crypto that the federal government has been waging. We're going to end that war. And we're going to bring it into the fold. When you look at states like Wisconsin, very close election. Pennsylvania, not so much so. Even Michigan, not so much so. But why? I would argue there's at least some credit to be given to this entire decision, his entire decision to embrace this. There has to be some credit to be given for that. Because this is where these people were disproportionately located. When you don't have a job or that much opportunity and you're looking for other things to make money on, does anyone seriously fault the Trump family for making $1 billion in crypto? Who gives a shit? Good for them. Here's the other one. And I'll leave that there for now. Okay, and we'll have to read it how this is all written out because, of course, there's all these different ones, okay? Please tell us whether you agree or disagree with each of the following stated positions. And this one happened to be crypto-related. Americans should be allowed to own and use alternative currencies, such as Bitcoin, without requiring government permission. As you can see in total, it's already a big number. 29.4% said strongly agree. 29.9% said somewhat agree. Only a combined of 21.3% disagreed, with 9.3% being in the strongly disagree category. Yeah, again, a big unsure, whatever. Just like, I'm agnostic toward it, right? Like I just, it is what it is. I have no interest. I don't have enough knowledge or enough interest. Doesn't concern me. 23.3% had no opinion or were unsure. So, the pro crypto, pro alternative, pro Bitcoin, see, like what world, what viewpoint here won overwhelmingly. But again, look at it compared to those who have never voted. It's big, there's no doubt, but it's still in the 50s, mid 50s. Among those who have never voted, it was in the 60s. It's a big difference, a significant difference. So glad, that Harry and the rest of them just caught on. We ourselves focused much more on food freedoms because you had the MAGA movement. So when we reported these results or we did a what are the odds, we came on here, or Barnes came on inside the numbers, whatever it may have been that specific day, it is true that we certainly focus more on the food issue because, the food and medical freedom kind of combined thing there, because RFK was putting together the beginning of what would be the MAGA movement, whether he knew it or not. It's massive. And we paid attention to it, but this was there all along. Financial freedom. Isn't that at the heart of the American dream? Like, why would any of us have been surprised? For a short period of time, and there have been scams. I'm not saying that some of the reputation for crypto isn't warranted. I'm not saying that because it is. Although I think there's, a lot of lessons have been learned, and there, a lot of people have moved past this thing, so they know what is legitimate and what is not legitimate. We have companies now that have been around for years, and we know they're not a scam. Like, what the hell is the name of that company that was? Does anybody know the name of the company that scammed investors and basically everybody into believing that they were going to be the first ones to make a crypto debit card? It's driving me nuts. I mean, it was big news. Big news. Yeah. Nobody knows. Come on, guys. Somebody's got to know. Yeah, it is what it is. If you remember, throw it in there. It wasn't Gox. It wasn't I think it starts with a C. Hold on. This is driving me nuts. This is driving me nuts. Hang on. Company, fraud, crypto debit card. Crypto debit card fraud. Centratech. That's it. I mean, since Centratech, you have things like the FTC up there, what to know about cryptocurrency scams, stuff like that. But yeah, Gox was the exchange. Yeah. But I mean, that's a big story. And crypto got hurt. The brand of crypto or the image of crypto got hurt bad by Centratech and others. I mean, Centratech was big. That was big. There have been some, I mean, if I remember correctly, they not only took Americans' money, it was like American investors' seed money. They took Koreans, I think. Koreans, I think so. I could be wrong. I know it's Asian. Could be Chinese. Took their money and ran. So Americans now, their views, I don't want to say their trust yet. We'll poll that. We'll find out. But very clearly, they wanted to go in a different direction. They did not want Big Brother waging a war on crypto or other alternative currencies. At this point, the actual physical US dollar is almost like an alternative currency, right? But it can't be regulated in how you spend it or what, as easily. So they hate it. Crypto fell into that. It was just easier to paint them because people's behavior allowed them to do that. All right. So with that in mind, it's 3:01. All right, we're back to work here. We're back to the grind here. All right. So we'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, Nations and Identities book club. Good stuff. Last week, I mean, look, if you got a Amy Cesar coming up, course on colonialism. Read a little Virginia Woolf last week, but Alfred Rosenberg we read, which was something else. The Myth of the 20th Century. We're going to be reading Discourse on Colonialism, not course, Discourse on Colonialism. Probably we'll get through it all. It's one of the bigger notes in this, but what I like about this book is that you basically just have Vincent Pecora lay out in the end. Is it perfect? No, he's a liberal. Lay out in the beginning, the editorial. Sometimes it seeps through, sometimes it doesn't, and does a very good job. But either way, I think he does a good job. He chose a nice collection for this time period, and it is extremely relevant now to the things that we are dealing with and we're discussing. The concept, the idea, or the imagined community that is a nation. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to boogie and get out of here. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. And the best place to follow us, as always, is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. If you're a supporter on Locals or a member on YouTube, you can sign up for the book club. All right. What am I missing here? I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. All right, but either way, I'll boogie. There'll be more voter file modeling we'll be doing and throwing up. All right, we went over some of them on Friday, but I got Pennsylvania up there for everybody to see. Remarkable shift in the state of Pennsylvania. Incredible. And I just don't know the answer to the question of, will Republicans F it up? Because there's nothing in the data but good news for them, with the exception of the higher propensity voter votes Democratic now. With the exception of that. That's a short-term gain for Democrats, the way it was for Republicans until they went under. But it does require Republicans to take advantage of that. It requires them to course correct the way they have resisted to the way they have resisted for years now. All right, I'm out. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, nothing but love for you. Hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I certainly did. It is super hot out there today, and I got some stuff I gets to do too, which is going to be brutal. All right, so hydrate, or as we used to say in the Army, beat the heat. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Now.